Welcome back to the podcast. Today we've got Travis Hann with us, and Travis is going to teach you how to innovate or die. Innovate or die. Travis, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Anthony. Happy to be here.
You know, when people talk about innovate or die, that's so cliche, and we got it. But look, aren't the cannibals always coming at us?
Yeah, you know what, Anthony? I mean, we used to say what we did 10 years ago, right? And now things are changing so fast. We say what we used to do 6 months ago. The tools are changing, the people are changing, what people value and appreciate are changing, and what makes them thrive is changing, right? So I often say innovate or die because I think getting comfortable in business, getting comfortable in leadership is incredibly dangerous. And I think the minute you get comfortable is the minute you have to look in the mirror and figure out what are we going to do next to change and keep this business going. So, a lot of the infrastructure has been the same, but a lot changes around it. So you constantly have to be moving forward.
Well, I think that's one of the ones where I had to get really clear on that. I thought I'd get to a place in business where I could get up there and cruise. Everything would get easier. And I was having a conversation with one of my leaders down in Florida last week, and he's like, man, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. I'm like, yeah, Joe, what you need to know is it's never going to change. That the truth is, pray to be stronger. Don't pray for it to be easier. Just learn to be stronger, because in order to be in business, you have to be able to continuously evolve. Mm-hmm. And the biggest fundamental flaw with leaders, I believe, are they get to a place where they don't understand that, we have to maintain that regiment.
Yeah. I know you're a big reader, Anthony, and I heard a quote recently that I absolutely loved, and it's, not all readers lead, but all leaders read, right? And there's truth behind that. I mean, you read any biography, and it's pretty easy to pick up on the fact that they're either reading the Wall Street Journal in the morning, or they're starting their day with some sort of knowledge sucking kind of capacity to kind of get them started on their day. And I mean, knowledge is power. So it's not easy, but you got to fuel the engine to kind of keep yourself going.
I mean, so in a world that's changing so fast, what are the things, that hold people back from that continuous learning process, right? Getting stuck in their old ways. What are the things that slow leaders down? And essentially, sometimes it even feels like they drag luggage around with them. These old ideas, these thoughts and resentments, all this stuff that they do. It almost feels like, you can see it in some leaders. They're just dragging this a bunch of bad baggage with them.
Yeah, there's the best leaders have such a great amount of humility, right? They're the ones in the room who are okay admitting if they don't know the answer, right? Or they'll come back to you if they can go out and figure out the answer. And I think that the best leaders are the ones that are able to really kind of create this like magnetic force within their business where people want to be on the team. And not only from a cultural standpoint of employees wanting to work for that person because they're magnetic and they know how to infuse them with inspiration and leadership traits, but also the clients, right? Clients want to work with vendors and partners who represent them and fuel them with energy. So I think good leaders have an amazing sense of humility, but they also have this amazing sense of making everyone around them feel that energy and wanting to go do better. And that's hard to do, right? Not everyone has that in their toolkit.
I watch it all the time. There's, being able to be in a room and move a team of people forward, that's the real gift of leadership. In fact, I would even say leadership is the ability to bring a group together and be able to solve you take the billions of ideas of the world and bring it to solving solutions, right? Mm-hmm. Great leaders have access to the billions of ideas. I mean, they have the capacity to have a real open mind, and they're vulnerable, and they're able to look at, they don't get myopic. And, so there's a lot of people out there that are a hammer, looking for a nail, and they only have that hammer to use. Mm-hmm. And their ability to lead is very limited. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that when you start reading books and you start going to seminars, you start spending time with other great leaders, right, you start to create a toolkit of things and structures that can solve, just about, any problem. And there's, billions of solutions for every one of them. Right.
Yeah. We were leading a CEO search recently, and it's interesting when you're in interviews, right? Because people can put on a good show and kind of give the answers that you want to hear. And it's hard to sometimes dig deeper and see beyond what they're actually capable of or what they have done. And, we have kind of a rule of thumb at our firm that whenever we hire somebody, we're going out for lunch or we're going out for a drink, or we're getting them in a social setting where we can really kind of dig deeper beyond what kind of dig into the EQ components, I guess, of their persona. And we were doing a CEO search, and the board meeting had finished, and ultimately everyone was gung ho on the one candidate. That's who we're going with. They ended up having a dinner plan with that individual to kind of get them in a social setting, and afterwards it was a heck no. And it's amazing how you can go from a boardroom setting where it's very much an interview style to a social setting, and the reality is interviews can be a little bit scripted sometimes, right? Where when you get someone in a social setting, it's that storytelling, it's the ability to articulate a story and kind of bring a table together, and what leadership's all about, right? Like, how can you call a town hall with a couple hundred employees if you lack the ability to get everyone's attention to where you have to go, or get them on board to a big decision you want to make, or shareholders or investors? I mean, that is a trait that's kind of only learned from experience, right? It's very hard to learn that in school, or learn that if you don't have the chops kind of growing up to gain that capability. It's a tough one.
It's not a scripted behavior, right? To be able to go and have access comes with experience, right? And that experience is the product of sometimes, being hammered out on the anvils of pain, right? I mean, you've have gone through some of that stuff where you've literally had to trudge a road, or really carry a team, or go through the ups and downs of, hey, when you made poor leadership. I mean, great leadership sometimes feels like, the leader who's gone through and had some great experiences, but then also has the ability to learn from that, right? Not the ones who keep repeating the same thing over and over and kind of go back through the same thing. So, so let me ask you this: when you're out there recruiting, right, and you're looking for that top tier, let's talk about some of the successes that you've had and where they've been successful, and then talk about some places where they haven't been so successful. And how did you, what are you learning through that process?
Yeah, we're in the business of people, right? And people can be unpredictable, Anthony, right? So it's not an easy answer to provide. I think that the leaders that we see who we're recruiting that are having the most amount of success have the insatiable desire to keep on learning, right? They're not stubborn to the point of not being open-minded. They're open-minded to try new things. And they've been through a few volatile times before. I think that's pretty important these days, because, I mean, you see what's going on with inflation and tariff threats and geopolitical tensions around the world, right? And you need a leader at the top that can kind of ride those waves. I have a bit of a saying that I often say, and it's you can see who's skinny dipping when the tide goes out. And what that means is that it's relatively easier to run a business when things are going well. Sales are up, everyone's happy, the economy's in your favor. But the minute things get bad, it's really where you start to figure out who's comfortable really leading a team and a company, right? And calling tough shots is difficult in a business. And, I think that saying, I've always kept that with me for a handful of years, because the best leaders are the ones who don't get freaked out, or at least show their emotion when times are getting tough, and they can get the team on board and get that vision. And we go back to that storytelling piece, right? You want people to have confidence to take the business to the next level, and they kind of depend on the leader. They like that direction. They like the person that they can follow. So that's my take, is people that can deal with change and having an open mind. And I think back to when did ChatGPT come out? Maybe June 2023 or something like that, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, yeah.
Yeah, and I was having an interview with a CEO the week of it, and I remember his take was, "Hey, have you seen that AI thing? What a bunch of BS." And I thought to myself, I'm like, geez, well, neither of us actually know if it is BS. I mean, it might be capable of everything that we think it is, but wouldn't a better mentality have been, boy, can you imagine if it is capable of doing everything that it's saying it can do? What can I do to my business, my team, et cetera? So like that energy becomes contagious versus that the protective mindset where the conversation's kind of over, right? You killed the energy. So
just seeing the opportunity and stuff as opposed to the naysayer. Look, every team has one. Every team's got the anchor, right? The person who thinks that by being a naysayer, who sees the worst parts of it, they think that they're doing and maybe there's some gift in having someone on the team who kind of pushes back a little bit, but the team gets exhausted, right? I mean, you can only drag that anchor around. We're dealing with one right now. He's a great guy, been around the team for a while, but he's got this ability to find everything that could possibly go wrong, as opposed to creating what could go right, right? It's that person. And I got his leader of his team just came in and was like, look, I love the guy, but literally every decision I make with him is about, I got to talk him off the fence all day long.
Yeah. Hey, some of the best business people, they're not the smartest, right? They're just absolutely relentless in having success, and they can get everyone around them on board. and And that's tough to do, right? We see it all the time.
Well, I would even venture to say that when I was young, I call it young and dumb. There was there was a gift. Like I didn't know, and not knowing I couldn't do something was freaking awesome. It was the biggest gift I had, was that I didn't know that I couldn't do something. So you get older and you get in business. I'm 28 years into it. I can sometimes feel myself getting defensive, right? Where I go on defense rather than offense, right? Where when I was young, nothing. I don't care. Let's go do that. Yeah, let's go do that. Let's go do that. Let's go do this. Yeah, let's go do that. Look, it was always about conquering, and then all of a sudden you get to a place where you get to some numbers, and then you want to keep it, and everything looks good, and you start to play a little defensive. And today's my coaching, the coaches that work with me are forcing me to stay on offense. Like, look, now it's time to double down on innovation, take the knowledge of your gifts and continue to explore and grow and push those boundaries. And I'm like, okay, right? Because look, at 57, I have innovated a lot. I started when there were no computers. I started when there were no cell phones. I've innovated. And now you're asking me to double down and grow faster and innovate more and push the boundaries and be the leader in AI and be the one. And you're whoa, right?
Yeah. Well, when you don't know what you don't know, right? And I think about sports, and I'm an avid golfer. And when I moved to my town I'm in Montreal, Canada. I've been here for 4 years, and the club I joined here is an incredibly hard golf course. The best time I ever played it was the first time I ever played it. And the reason is because I didn't know what was out there. I didn't know there was water to the left. I didn't know there was trees on the right and out of bounds. And the reality was I was playing relentlessly aggressive. And when you do that and you don't know what's there, you play pretty good. And that's what happened. And for 4 years, I've been trying to beat that score. And now I know there's water to the left. And now I know there's out of bounds to the right. So guess where I hit the ball, right? And it's the same in business. And, while we're on the sports topic, you compare sports to business. And it's so funny, right? Because business is the only sport where you play way more than you practice. So we talk about getting reps and experience and calling those hard shots and building storytelling, and you only get it from experience and time in the market and messing up, right? You don't get a whole lot of opportunities to practice pitches in business or practice raising funds or whatever you're dealing with in your business. You kind of just got to go through the motions and be ready to play ball at all times.
Well, and I think that nerve is tough. There's a guy who's staying with me right now, and he's going through, and I'm coaching him on a business he's trying to grow. And that nerve of being vulnerable is not something that we're born with. So for those of you out there that are new business or are new executives, or you're hiring, you're in a first position, or you're a new entrepreneur, look, and you're looking across the screen and saying, "Oh my God, those guys have it together." Look, you don't. Nobody has it together. Here, all of us go through the same learning curve. There's no one out there who has it perfectly figured out. And everybody felt stupid when they started. And everybody went through the learning pains of it. There is no such thing as I was born a great entrepreneur. It's honed. Literally, I got to go back to that same statement. It's honed on the anvils of pain, right? Mm-hmm. You have to go through and make mistakes, and you have to keep trying. But standing in the at-bat, right? Just keep going, getting another at-bat, and try again. Try another at-bat. Try again.
But isn't that the fun of it, right? We reflect back. Our team goes away once a year together, Anthony, and we're always looking at old content or old stuff we were working on. And when we see the material we were putting in front of clients 5, 6, 7 years ago, we're like, oh my God, that's so cringy, right? It's so embarrassing. And someone on our team said it best once, but cringe is courage, right? You got to have a bit of courage to put out that first marketing material, that first podcast, that first post, or that first client pitch. And a lot of people don't have the courage to step up to bat and do it, right? So kudos to the entrepreneurs that do, because every year just keeps on getting better.
Well, and the more you hone that skill, the more the easier it becomes. Maybe it never goes away completely. I'm doing this thing where I'm doing hot sauna and cold plunge. This whole this whole thing that's been a rave lately. Yeah. And you would think that after maybe doing this thing maybe 45 times now, I would get to a place where it gets easier. And the truth is, it doesn't. Right? It's really the gift of the first 3 minutes in there. You think to yourself, get out. What are you doing in here? What are you doing? And now I can do it for about 13 minutes at a time. And but I can pretty consistently do that. The only gift I know is that when I do it, I'm not going to die. right? The first couple of times I did, I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna have a heart attack. I should get out of this water. This is insane. The only difference is I still want to get out. Right. I've never gotten to a place where sitting in cold water seems like it's awesome. Or maybe I do. Maybe there's some breakthrough. Maybe it's like those people who run and say like, oh, I got to a runner's high. I've never gotten there either. But in the at bats, at least, when I get in the water, all right, I've done this, 45 times. I've never died. You know what? It's always, my brain always says the same thing. Once I get past 8 minutes, my brain kind of goes, oh, look at you. You did fine. My body starts to regulate. I could probably go a lot longer than that. But the same thing happens in business, right? So I think that you never quite go, you're never quite, if you're a great entrepreneur, you're always looking for the places where your business is going to fail. Right, you should get up every single morning knowing that the cannibals are coming at you. They're looking to take your business from you. They're coming to eat your face off. And if you don't get up with that sense of fear, you probably get a little lackadaisical. And my belief is, don't use that to paralyze yourself, but use that stuff to get your ass out of bed and continue to innovate.
It's a mindset, right? And I'm on the sauna game as well. And I got to 10 minutes yesterday, but I can't get in that cold plunge. It's the next step for me, so I'll report back to you.
Go for it. All I can tell you is that it's that breaking of the mind. Travis, it's the breaking of the mind that goes, I call my brain Fred. Right. And Fred's kind of a jackass, right? Fred's like makes up all kinds of stories of things I can't do. So once I get that cold plunge, I'm like, Fred, I gotcha.
I've got the cold shower down pat, but the plunge is a bit different. But it's a mental framework, right? I'm a cycler, and in the summers I cycle, and I was cycling around one of our cities a few months back, and I was cycling with my father-in-law, and there was 2 big climbs in the ride. And he said the first climb is going to be the hardest one you've ever done. It's huge. And the second one is actually bigger. And so, of course, the first one is all I'm thinking about, and it's coming around, and there was just no end to this climb, and I ended up getting off my bike about 3/4 of the way up because I just couldn't finish it. And the second climb was bigger, but because I wasn't mentally prepared or wasn't thinking about it as much, I got to the second climb, and I rode that one like a complete beast. And meanwhile, it was harder than the first one, right? But it's just like business too. I find when you have a hard shot to call or a tough decision to make, rip it off like a Band-Aid and get it done, right? If you sleep on that for weeks at a time and that's all that's in your head, I mean, it just gets so much more difficult to do than it actually is, right? And
so say that again. Here, I went down to hear that. So here, say that again, because I think people pass over this. They get analysis paralysis. So just say that one more time.
Analysis paralysis is a real thing. When you have a tough decision to make, don't sleep on it for days and weeks, because the longer you wait, the harder it's actually going to be to do. Rip it off like a Band-Aid and get it done, assuming you've done the analysis to make sure it's the right decision, right?
But even if you're wrong, I find out I'm wrong faster.
Yeah.
Look. Even my job is to make the call. Right, yes or no? Yes. Great. I go down this. Oh, we made a mistake. At least I find out faster, right? It's usually not 100% waste. It's usually I get some value out of it, even if it's a wrong decision. I get some value from the learning or the path we ran down to get it, which makes the other answer that much faster to solve.
Of course. Well, what's the saying? Execution eats strategy for breakfast, right?
That's right.
Analysis paralysis, you can sit and strategize all you want, but the reality is if you don't execute, you're never going to get that notch under your belt of experience. And you got to execute. I mean, how many great entrepreneurs are overlooked or they don't actually make it because they're too scared to start executing and get that first product in the market because it's not perfect, or the first service call in the market because it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. I'm sure you can say that where you are today, right? I mean, you probably have perfected your craft over the last 30 years or so, and the same on my side, but it's never going to be perfect.
Well, let me ask you this. When look, an entrepreneur gets to that stage where you're the founder, now you're ready to grow and you're ready to bring on some other people, the hardest thing is to step aside and let that next group of people take on growing the company, right? You want to start bringing on a VP or C-level or higher. What are the biggest mistakes they make when they go to take that step? What's the stuff that holds them back from making that process really effective?
Honestly, Anthony, I think it's not being ready to actually give up the responsibilities and the space to allow them to do it. I think a lot of people want that flexibility and that capability to get to the next level, whether it's an ego thing, a pride thing, I don't know, or maybe a little bit of a control freak thing, as some entrepreneurs have. I know sometimes I fall in that boat. That's what gets in the way. And it's the reality. I've done 2 founder transitions in my search career over the last decade, and every time I'm putting CEOs in front of a founder to kind of take their seat of being the shot caller in their business that they've built, every single candidate calls me after and says, "Are you sure that person's really ready to give up the CEO role?" And it's a fair question, right? Yeah. And a lot of people have a hard time actually giving up those responsibilities even when they come on board. So I think that's the challenge, right? But there's an incredible sense of magic when you can delegate work to people that are probably actually more capable of doing the work than you these days. That's where businesses really go from 1 to 10 and 10 to 100, right?
Well, how does a founder de-risk that experience?
I think doing due diligence, just as if you talk to an investor when they're going to buy a business, right? How do you de-risk the chances that business is going to make you lose cash or fail? You got to know what you're looking for. You got to have due diligence. You got to have the right team in your corner. Data-driven decisions on such an expensive decision is quite important. I think you can't go always with your gut reaction or who you get along with, because you and I might get along totally great on this podcast, but maybe we wouldn't be the best business partners. Maybe we don't complement each other well enough, right? Maybe your strengths are the same strength as mine, but our weaknesses aren't covered. So I think figuring out on the bullseye what you have and what you don't have is important in terms of your team right now and your leadership team. And what you don't have is what you have to go find, right? Because it's great to have 15 people on a leadership team that all get along, look alike, talk alike. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's the best equipped team to take the organization to the next place.
Well, and it's really difficult when you've been the founder. Look, I've been in the seat for a long time. I had a business coach who came in, and her name was Lola. She's this great coach, and she comes in one day, and she's like big personality, and she comes walking in my office one day, and she goes, "Anthony," it was like my coaching day. She goes, "Anthony, today we're going to lock your door." And I think, oh, this is great. That's great. I get to all focus, and I get to get some stuff done. And, I have an open door policy. People come in my office all day. She goes, great. And people won't bother me. She goes, no. You got this all wrong. We're locking you in. I go, well, what do you mean you're locking me? She goes, yeah. You stop going out there and stepping on everybody's air hose. He goes, you've hired all these amazing human beings to come run your company, and you keep walking out there and stepping on their air hose. And you're in the way. So she got me down to having just 5 one-on-ones a week, right? I got 1 hour with each of the leaders, and I thought, okay, perfect. Here's what I'll do. All week long, I'll make up these task lists. All right, all right. One's going to do this one, 2's going to do this one, 3's going to do this one. All right, here we'll have this list, and we'll walk in the meeting, and I'll go, all right, look here. All right, look, I need you to reports over here, financial thing over here. And I found out I don't do any of that. Today, I sit on my one-on-ones, and I just say, hey, how are you doing? Right? Today, those people know how to run the company. And, hey, do you need something? You need some help, or something you want to work on? I ask them, essentially, what can I help you do? And it's a whole different – but here, I couldn't have known that without a coach, right? I think as you make that transition, having a coach to guide you through that adds a whole bunch of value.
It goes back to my saying, right? I mean, you say coach, and I use the sports analogy again. I mean, you don't get a whole lot of opportunities in business to practice, and that's kind of what they're there for, right? They're a sounding board. You get to, and boy, as a founder, how many times do you talk about an idea? Because I'm sure you're the classic entrepreneurial mindset of idea. And sometimes it's best to not always vocalize your ideas to people around you. Right? It becomes a distraction, and people start getting on your ideas, and before you know it, everyone's unfocused on what we actually do for a living. And I'm so guilty of that. And that's what, I have my sounding board for, is they're my idea sounding board instead of bringing those in the company. Right.
Are you seeing, so what are you seeing with AI, and, where does, AI, genuinely improve, the executive, search today?
AI is, it's a powerful component of what we do now, Anthony. But what I say is, because you always see the kind of clickbait stuff online, is AI going to replace this and replace that, and is it going to replace recruiters? I mean, everyone's job is being a question of what it's capable of. And for us, what I say is AI can identify, but it can't qualify, right? So it can If we have to go out and find a CEO who has raised $100 million in this, particular niche in this location, it can very quickly help us identify all of the relevant leaders very fast. The reality is that's not why our clients pay us, right? They don't pay us to bring them a list of who's capable or who's in the location. So for us, we're leveraging it from that standpoint to speed up parts of the process that may have been slowed a bit slower previously, Anthony. That's helpful, as well as just the classic administrative work that I think all of our organizations are benefiting from. The implementation of different AI tools these days is just making things go quicker with less ability to make a mistake. I think that's pretty amazing about it, right? Is we can all move at a little bit of a quicker speed and knowing the quality isn't going to sacrifice, which is quite nice. But I'd say that's where we're using it the most, is on the identification part and the administrative part of getting stuff in front of clients. That's where we are.
Nice. Have you noticed anything different in North America, kind of the way that we're, the way you're seeing signals in the marketplace? How is North America founders, how should they be acting today as opposed to what my father did or my grandfather did?
I often laugh at my father and my grandfather and kind of what they think of what they're seeing, right? In North America, it's an interesting thing, right? Because all founders and business leaders should be looking at AI on where can I implement it in my business. I think that the little risk that's around that a lot of business owners are kind of getting sucked into, that they may not even know it, is that it's become such a core focus that a lot of other things are being forgotten about, right? It's culture is being a little bit forgotten about because everyone's trying to digitalize to the point of cultures almost becoming a little bit irrelevant. And then when people leave companies to join really great cultures, everyone's like, well, why would they leave, right? And the reality is people thrive on people. They thrive on interactions and experiences and how people make them feel. AI, have you ever talked to an AI bot and left the call or the conversation feeling super amazing about yourself? I don't know. I haven't. But I've definitely left a room or a cocktail party or a boardroom where I'm infused with inspiration and excitement and energy. And that is something I don't think we're going to see on AI, right? So a lot of business leaders in North America are looking at what they can replace on their org chart or drive efficiency with, Anthony. But I think the risk in all of this is being mindful that people are still what make a business go around, right? And you want to be able to prioritize both.
Yeah, I find there's a lot more. We can automate some stuff. I was going to be this morning talking about, we're trying to implement hour tracking for employees, right? Just trying to figure out how we charge against projects and how we do that. And we've never been great at it. There's never been a time when anybody who wants to track their hours. It's just painful. It's like pulling teeth. And I've threatened people, I'm not going to give you your paycheck. I'm not going to send out expense reports. I've tried, I'll give you free apple pies or free, dinner certificates or movie tickets. I've tried all kinds of motivation to get, and no one really wants to do that. Now they're looking at over here. We've created an AI model. Her name is Zoe, and Zoe can now talk to employees and find out, know what projects they're working on, and find a way for them to track their hours and then do the reporting on it. So we're looking at Zoe will be able to do something in an interactive way, like on Fridays, be able to talk to the employee and say, all right, let's just check in and how do you want to bill against which projects, and be able to do that and give them a report and go, yeah. And I look at it, go, all right, do you want to make any adjustments or, in a voice as opposed to, 4:00 on a Friday afternoon when everybody's trying to get the hell out of the office. Yeah. Remind everybody to do their hour sheet for the week. And then when it doesn't happen, it is so frustrating for a group where we're trying to put that together. So I think we're finding some spots like that may or may not work, but at least we keep trying to implement, looking for the places where the biggest friction in the business is and trying to apply automation to it that will work. That's kind of what we feel like we're using it for. So how does a company find the best talent? What's the secret to finding the best in class talent?
The secret is that they're not looking, right? So the secret is they're head down, they're executing, they're busy, and they're really hard to get a hold of. Those who are looking are easier. They're coming to you or to us in the instance of what we do for a living. But the best leaders, Anthony, they're tied down. They've got long-term incentives because they're performers. And the reality is that's why we have jobs, is because we've got to find those people. So, there's obviously all the tools that we all have access to, LinkedIn, Zoom Info, PitchBook, all those different type of softwares. That's not what our secret sauce is, or any firm's secret sauce should be. But the reality is what is not considered good to one company doesn't make that individual not good to another company, right? So I think part of the secret sauce of being on our side of the industry in the search world is trying to figure out what your style is, what your culture is, what fits that and what doesn't fit that, right? And that's kind of the matchmaking at the end of the day. I mean, it's like dating at the end of the day as well, right? I mean, just because one person isn't a fit for you doesn't mean they're not a fit for someone else. And our job is to kind of dig deeper on figuring out where people should be and who would drive well together and vibe well together. So we use all the tools, of course, but it's a little bit more than just using a tool. I mean, back to AI, right? It can identify, but qualifying is the component where the humans come in.
That's interesting. If there was one thing that you could give our audience today on their playbook to, find the best employees, make the process scalable, and they can adopt it today, what would you give our audience?
I think putting yourself in the shoes of someone that's looking at your brand, right? So I talk about that magnetic culture, and you want to create a kind of a cult environment where people want to be in the room with your team. They want to be associated with that brand because it's sexy, it's appealing, it's innovative, it's moving forward, it's young, it's dynamic, it's hungry. That's what people want these days, right? So you have to put yourself on the outside, and are you built in a way to attract the person that you want on your team? It's no different, back to the dating analogy, right? If you want to date someone who is an avid runner and loves food and loves traveling, etc., well, you better start building yourself in a way that is what is attracted to you, right? And it's no different in the business world. So I think for how you want to perceive your team and who you want on your team, you've got to put yourself in their shoes, and are you offering what you think that will attract them? So I think that is important. The last thing I'll leave you with on this front is you got to be good to be lucky, right? Oftentimes people see entrepreneurs, they see business owners or people that are, driving a very successful environment, and they say, oh boy, it must be nice, or they're lucky. The reality is there's a lot of luck that goes into running a really good business, but there's also a bit of a strategy to being lucky, right? You got to put yourself in the situations to be lucky. You got to go to those environments where it's an event or it's a cocktail party, even when you wake up that day and you're like, geez, I don't really have the energy to walk that floor today. But you know what? Every time I felt that lack of energy to do that, something great has come from that, right? And you just got to put yourself in the rooms, on the podcast, on the webinar, so people can find you and see you. But that is luck, right? Luck comes from somewhere. It's not that you're sitting on your couch and you're not anywhere to be found and the phone rings. So I think those two components are what can kind of help drive and scale teams, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. And I'm so grateful for having you on. Look, when we look at growing a brand and finding those people, tell me a little bit about what you guys do and how we can leverage what your company does for helping us hire the top talent.
Yeah. So think of us as agents, Anthony. I mean, when you go to sell your house, you'd call a real estate agent because it's probably best in their hands. And it's the same for us when you're looking to make a critical leadership hire, whether it's a director, VP, or C-suite. There's a ton of due diligence that goes behind the scenes of finding great people, but more importantly, assessing the great leaders to make sure that they are who they say they are and they're a fit with your organization. So that is what we do. We build leadership teams, we find leaders and try and make good matches in the workforce.
I have learned throughout my years that you can do it the cheap way, right? And look, when you're a bootstrap company, you're getting started, it makes complete sense. But when we find pros who can go do this for us, I do some side projects where I flip some homes, and the difference between the pros that the folks I used to use and the pros that I use today, right? Just the different way between the way they have it staged, the way they set the marketplace up. We just sold a house in less than 2 hours of it being on the market. Now, I mean, I just look at it and go, and they broke the marketplace high watermark, right? It was $50,000 over the highest property in the neighborhood. And they did such a great job of doing that because, look, when you find the pros to do that, right? When you get out of the way and let the people who do what they do well And that's really what we're looking for. So over at Pender, and how do people get a hold of you? And if they want to recruit you to come find their best in class people, what's the best way for them to catch up with you?
Awesome. I'm on LinkedIn at Travis Hann, and www.penderhowe.com is where you can find everything about me and us, and would love to connect.
We'll put all that down below. And if people go to your website, what can they find over there?
They can find everything about me, our team, our services, and where we're based. So we cover North America, US, and Canada, and we have a global footprint with our alliance. So you can find a bit more about our services.
Well, before we leave, what's your favorite golf course you ever played?
I played Pebble Beach this year, so that's my new favorite.
There you go. Well, that's awesome. I'm so grateful for having you on the show today. Folks, if you want to get a hold of Travis, I'll have all that down below. And as always, we're grateful for you being here. Oh, hey, listen, before you leave, look, last week I had another breakthrough week with how many people watched the show, how many people logged on, and it was crazy. It was a crazy week of how many guests we had, how many people had downloads. But we noticed that more than 65% of you made it to the end of the show, and you were not subscribers. And it's like crazy. So Jonathan over here is working on getting a raise. He says, look, you can get me 5,000 new subscribers. If you could help him get to 5,000 subscribers, he gets a raise after that. Look, what we're looking to do right now is bring that on. It does help us get great guests like Travis and his team to come over here. So if you could take a second and like and subscribe right now, we'd be so grateful. And as always, thanks for listening.